I'm Master Chief Shane Carroll, the 13th District Command Master Chief, and I'm privileged to be your Master of Ceremonies this morning. As our special guest today, I welcome Commander Doug Sheehan. Douglas Munro was 22 years old when he was killed on Guadalcanal in 1942. His mother, Edith Munro, served as a lieutenant in the Coast Guard during World War II and was laid to rest here at this cemetery next to her husband, James Munro. They had two children, Douglas Munro and Patricia Sheehan. And today's presiding official, Rear Admiral Charles Fosse, Commander, 13th Coast Guard District. Welcome all to the 81st annual wreath laying and remembrance ceremony to honor Signalman First Class Douglas Munro, the Coast Guard's only Medal of Honor recipient.
But we're here to celebrate just a legacy of honor in Douglas Albert Munro. The honor of being here with you all today, and I know it settles in on all of you how important it is that we continue to recognize those that have served in such special and honorable ways. And many years have passed, 81 years since 1942, September 27th, where Douglas Munro gave the last measure in hopes that his efforts would yield a freedom to our great nation, and not just our great nation, but to the world order. It wasn't just the United States that was at risk in the waters off of Guadalcanal. It was the entire world, the freedom-loving world, the peace-loving world that he and others, many others, were fighting for. The Marine Corps and the United States Coast Guard have a special bond, and it was born during that time, right in Guadalcanal, as Douglas Munro working to get Marines off of that beachhead. And ever since then, the Marines and the Coast Guard have had an even stronger bond than we already had then. Aside from the privilege here, probably the greatest privilege I've had related to Douglas Munro was to actually go to Guadalcanal. About this time last year, it was my first time in the Solomon Islands, where Guadalcanal is not part of that island chain. And I was able to sit on the shores, Point Cruz in Guadalcanal, where that action happened, where Douglas Munro was working to retrieve Marines, to give cover to other boats that were retrieving the Marines off of that beachhead. I was able to go up to the Guadalcanal Memorial up on the hillsides that overlooks the waters, and few more moving experiences have I had than being able to close my eyes and imagine what was happening during that time and in that fight. And that was one morning's battle. There were many others. 7,100 American lives lost during the campaign in Guadalcanal, over 8,000 wounded. The tremendous amount of sacrifice on the United States side. And Douglas Munro may not have known it in that moment, but his sacrifice and the sacrifice of others turned the tide of World War II in the favor of our allies and our partners in the United States. Without that effort, without that struggle in repelling the Japanese off of that island, World War II would be had a different result, very likely could have. But the outcomes of that war were shaped right in that moment that Douglas Munro was giving his life. There are great consequences even today in the same way that Douglas Munro fought for our nation. Our Coast Guard men and women and our sister service members are still to this day doing that, and the namesake of Douglas Munro and the Coast Guard cutter Munro is active. And Doug was mentioning that he keeps an eye on that Coast Guard cutter that is named after his uncle in a way that is very special because it is important for us to have that name Munro still ever present.